Testing, mic test. Testing. That's much better. That's much better. I don't know what it is with the app itself, but I guess it just doesn't want to record using noise cancellation. Maybe something I can figure out later, but that's the thing about doing this stuff. You just learn on the fly, and eventually you get better, but can't do anything about that. So, we are alive. We're live, okay? And, okay, so for posterity's sake, we tried this stream before. I'm going to keep it on just for fun, but yeah, I'm going to go through some of the points I said, and we're going to get into it. How to nail your sales argument, okay? So there I was, in my attempt to formulate some more content, essentially. I found that I was having some trouble getting from, like, finding the correct format, kind of, it felt like a puzzle. Like, I have my sales argument, I just need to convert that into content, because that's the point of a sales argument, right? Your sales letter. It's supposed to dictate everything else that funnels into it. So every bit of content you make comes from your sales argument. And once you have your sales argument down, everything else is supposed to be easy. So I was having trouble. I'm like, okay, this is felon. This is good. Okay. All right. What was I saying? Once you have your sales argument down, everything's supposed to stream really easily. And so because I was having trouble, I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back because maybe I'm working backwards. Maybe things aren't as sound as I thought they were. So I went back to the drawing board and I read my sales argument and I realized that it was missing something. And in fact, it had things in there that even I was having a difficult time explaining. Like, okay, my argument is not airtight. I need to rewrite this. So I went back to the drawing board and I just kind of followed. Like before, when I wrote my first one, I was very confused. I was like, okay, how do I, like, okay, I need to make an argument and then get it, like explain it, and then provide evidence, and then use that to answer any questions from any opposing point of view. It's like, okay, step, step, step. You keep going down the list of things you need to do. And I'd written a bunch of things. And for the most part, I'd say it's not too bad. It's not too bad. As long as you can explain it. And for me, because I finished writing it like, I think 2 weeks ago. And a mistake that I made is not check over it again and again and again. Like I've been using it to dictate the content and I've been having trouble finding direction in the content, right? So if you're having trouble in which direction your content needs to go, there's probably something wrong with your sales argument. So you need to rewrite your sales letter. It needs to be airtight. You need to have a really strong linear argument, right? And that comes from unique insight. And you get unique insight by doing the thing. So as I'm doing more of this is evidence for the fact that this process works. As I'm doing more of this, doing the lives, day 28 now, I'm finding more unique, I'm finding the unique insight through this, right? And yeah, so I decided I'm gonna rewrite my thesis, my argument. And so I started from the basic level. It's like, what do I think the problem is? And 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 I need a really good why. A why that people can understand. Something that makes sense. It's not confusing, and once I've said it, doesn't need any more explanation. I need to present the problem, and I need to present an explanation that doesn't require further explanation. Because I was reading my own explanation, and I wanted explanation on top of it. And that put me off from reading further, because I'm like, I don't even know what it means because it's too vague. So there's an aura of specificity that you need in your sales letter. Because we've spoken about this. When you are writing to your niche, and the word niche is the important word there. When you're writing to your niche, you have to realize that it's a very specific person with very specific problems, with very specific hobbies, with very specific interests and anxieties, and that's what you need to know. And so, you can find that insight in YouTube comments of videos that are relating to your topic. Reddit is great. People love sharing their opinions on Reddit. Just anywhere on social media. Like if you want to write a book about certain topics, you look at what other people are saying about similar books in that niche, right? You could read reviews, you could read the book itself. So I had a bit of a deep dive into this stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this to myself. Let's think about this would probably be a better way to say it. What are people afraid of when it comes to the problem that I have in mind? And it's like, do other people have that problem? Or is it a problem that is emerging in the future, right? Because currently this is an emergent market, right? This isn't an existing market because, we don't like existing markets. We're underdogs. And then the argument is almost like when you make it, you want to imagine the person with that problem saying, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? It's like laundry detergent, right? If you're selling laundry detergent, you want to talk about wine stains. You want to talk about, if you want to sell it to a certain person, you might say beer stains. If you want to sell it to a certain person in a certain price range, you might say wine stains. If you want to, target mothers, you might talk about, kids playing with paint or things like that, right? It's like you present a problem. The problem is that your kid keeps getting, something, whatever food stains on their clothes. So when you mention that, someone who has children and has tried a few different products out, they're listening immediately. It says I think my analytics is messy, but I don't know. But yeah, when you solve a problem, you have to be talking to a very specific person because they're the only one who's going to understand that problem. And so it has to be something that's very real. And Well, that's why you have to be very specific. It's like, it gets rid of stains. Well, that's the point of detergent. So why should I choose yours over someone else's? It's like, no, it gets rid of wine stains. It's like, oh, okay. If you drink wine and you've had wine stains before, you'll know what that means, right? So once you can get specific, so once you can, that's weird. So once you can get specific, that's when further explanation disappears, right? If you're vague, you'll ask yourself a question like, what the hell makes this different? But if you're specific, and when it comes to creating any sort of further, advertisement or, sales, anything, right? Or VSL even, you'll know exactly what to talk about because the problem is specific, the person listening is specific, and they're not going to have any questions. It's like, if you yourself, and this is the issue I had, if you yourself are having difficulties with kind of understanding what you've written, it's because it's too vague. And the person reading it will have the same issue. And you don't want that. And vagueness comes from a lack of research. Vagueness comes from a lack of research. So when I initially wrote my first sales argument, I didn't know as much as I do now. And when I reviewed it, which granted I should have been doing more of, when I reviewed it, I'm like, oh, even I don't get it. And now that I've written a new one, so I completely redrafted, and I have a draft version in my notes. I wrote that, and it's like the content came to me. Like I didn't have to think extra for it. If I wanted, let's say, a line, for the hook, immediately it was easy because it's like I know exactly who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about. Suddenly, what I was saying, I was like, yeah, this line would work because it specifically targets a very particular problem. And that's what we learned. Specify, specify, specify. You do not want your customer to have any questions. You want to, because attention is fleeting. It's finicky. It will just go. If you've managed to grab someone's attention, you don't want them to have more questions. You want their questions immediately answered. And if you're not answering immediately, you hook them in at the very least. by knowing exactly what information they're looking for regarding their problem. And then your solution argument is just very simple, because if it's a very specific argument that you have, then you have a very specific solution as well. Right? So don't be vague. Do not be vague, because your sales argument is the foundation for everything. It's the reason people are going to be buying from you. And so this needs to be a very good argument. It needs to be very specific, and it needs to be an optimal solution to their problem. Something that once you've introduced it into their life, you have a before and after state. Right? Let's say you have your change agent in the center. Right? They go from this to this. This is terrible handwork, but you get it, right? They go from one state to another, and your product carries them to that with as much ease as possible. They go from someone that has a problem to someone that no longer has that problem. You're saving them something, time, money, whatever. If you can find that specific problem, and if you can recognize what state that problem puts someone in your niche, then you can recognize that the place that a person comes to after you've introduced your product into their life, that is where they want to be, right? So just by knowing specifically the problem, you know exactly what you're saving someone, right? And so once you have your sales argument on why that problem is important, or that a problem even exists, right? You have to convince them that it exists and show them that the grass is greener on the other side. Okay? So you really have to hammer down that, because it's so important. Because that before, change agent, after is everything. There's nothing else. Everything else is useless, and you need to cut it out. You need to cut it out. You need to get lean and efficient with it. Otherwise, it will drag you down and it will cause friction. And that is not something that you want. We want a lean and efficient process that helps us get from A to B. So you can cut the fat, lean the meat up, right? Then you're going to have a much better time presenting that solution. And you want one simple problem, just one singular argument, one problem that you're solving, just one. You don't want to do 30 different things. You want to focus on one problem, and then you go from current state to desired state, and from that, all the different qualities of the before state and the after state due to that problem becomes your sales letter. Okay? So like start small, start from just one problem, one argument, and it becomes the basis of everything else. And if that's not clear, if that's not specific enough, you'll end up going down paths that lead you astray. Okay? And that's a bad thing. Do you get it? Today's a bit of a simple live, but I just wanted to get into it because I thought that was important. It's good to document this process because, well, this is the model, right? This is the model. And for me, it's important to notice every single uh, piece of friction that comes from this process so that I can give you the best um version of it. So where it might take me 4 weeks, it might take you one, right? I'm doing the hard stuff so you can do it faster. We're gonna have a short live today. Short live. What time is it? 7:24 here. Okay, well, since I'm done with the main point, I'm just gonna get to some updates. We've been testing more content, and it's been good. We've been testing more content, and it's been good. We're learning a lot about what works and what doesn't. Because the goal is to find viral formats. The goal is to find viral formats. But the issue is, depending on what depending on what your niche is, it's not always simple because we're being so specific. It's sometimes difficult. Like, not every viral format's going to work. Like, if you're doing software, if you're selling a software solution, if you're going to do like gym workouts, probably won't be the best thing. Like, there's probably a way you can do it, but how many software guys are hitting the gym like that? So will it show up in their For You page? So far, we've tried storytelling. We've tried um, kind of the usual "Did you know?" type content, and that's the one that did the best so far. That's the one that did the best. But I didn't want to double down just yet without testing out some other stuff, because as good as that was, it felt like it was a bad way to do content for this niche. So I wanted to try out different things. I wanted to see, because, as you know, I really believe in the power of writing. So if I can gain a significant amount of interest just by talking, then I know that I have something of value. Oh, we even tried memes. We even tried memes. And one of them did pretty decent. But again, memes, It's something I wanted to try, but for me, I think the best way is going to be copywriting. Like the way you write and present your arguments, probably going to be the strongest hook. And you don't want to put too much fluff in it because then people watch for the wrong reason. And we're not looking for mass appeal, right? Mass appeal is a bad thing. We want to focus on the high end of the market because that's more difficult. And we don't want to take the easy way out. But yeah, um, after I rewrote my sales argument, the content writing came much easier. And I decided to write a script, and I filmed it, and I posted it. And that was, what, 30 minutes ago? 40 minutes ago? Less than an hour ago. And, a good way to, a good way, a good wait for this stuff is about 3 days. So I'm going to wait for 3 days, see how it does. And if it reaches to like a kind of similar level to where we peaked, then if we go to a similar level to where we peaked before, then we know we're going in the right direction. I just got like a notification for like shorts policy. Oh, I used a copyrighted song. Content not affected. Whatever. It's fine. Okay. Well, we got into some interesting stuff. Remember your sales argument. Specify, specify, specify. It needs to be specific. You need to be talking to Debbie at her desk. You need to be talking to, you know, John at the cafe who's scrolling his phone, right? Solve one person's problem. And then that content will just find that one person. Do you understand? Okay. This was fun, but now I've got shit to do, so be good, do good things, and subscribe, and good things happen, and I'll see you tomorrow.